All right. So look, thanks for coming out on another Tuesday morning for part of the Teach PD series for session 2330. Today's session, we're going to be looking at some collaborative tools. Specifically, we're going to have a look at Padlet and also at Zoom Whiteboards. All right. So both of those tools, the CSU has an enterprise license for, which means that you get unlimited access to those tools. And I'd like for us to have a bit of a deep dive where we spend most of the time looking at the setup, the use of these tools, their applications, etc. Effectively, the format for all of these sessions is that if you've got questions or comments or other things along the way, by all means, pull me up, put things in the chat as we go. Either myself or other people in the sessions will respond back to you as we go. I think I'm just going to close my door, which I've forgotten to do. Give me 2 shakes. And we'll get straight into things. I would like to start this morning actually looking at Padlet. And then we'll have a look at the Zoom Whiteboards tool. Now, I've updated the quick guide that we use for Padlet at CSU, and I'll put that in the chat. That's for your reference. That document, effectively, if I open it here and bring it across, takes you through basically an explanation of the tool, but how to sign up for the accounts and how to start building your own Padlet walls. So I'm going to follow some of the steps of that as we go through. But basically, Padlet is an online bulletin board tool, which is a bit of a dated term these days. It basically makes a canvas or a board for you to post on or for other people to post on. And it all happens at CSU starting at this address, charlessturt.uni1.padlet.org. And that's where we create our Padlets from. Now, if you don't have a Padlet account, getting hold of one is really simple. You simply need to send an email to padlet@csu.edu.au and provide your details and that you would like an account set up. And that process happens very, very quickly. And then you'll be able to come to this address, charlessturt.uni1.padlet.org, and you'll be able to start creating your own Padlets. Now, Padlet's a really popular tool because of how simple it is to use, and also the fact that it can be used in a number of different contexts. But I think the best way to get into this is to actually build some of our own. And again, you may want to follow some of this from the quick guide if you're not sure what I'm doing here. But I'm going to start the process of making a new Padlet wall, which I begin by clicking on Make a Padlet. It asks us to choose between these different formats. This number has reduced slightly in the last 12 months. They used to have 8, now they have 7. Effectively, a Padlet wall will allow you just to add your posts, and they will start from left to right. And then once you've filled up the page left to right, those posts will start filtering top to bottom down the page, with newest posts appearing in the top left-hand corner. And you can change some of those settings if you want them to appear in different places, but that's the default. The stream option gives you a social media type post where you have content appearing up and down the page, scrolling one on top of the other, a lot like Facebook, for example, or a Twitter feed. Then we have a grid option, which is you get rows of content from left to right across the page. The shelf option will allow you to create columns with a heading. Map option will actually allow you people to make posts based on location. So they choose a spot on a map and then make a post against that location. We'll have a look at each of these. The canvas is a free-form post anywhere, but it also allows you to use relational arrows. We'll have a look at that. And the timeline option allows you to make posts on a continuum. Doesn't necessarily have to have times identified, but it certainly goes from left to right along that kind of timeline format. So let's have a look at some of these. If I click on the wall format, it's going to ask me for some information whilst we start creating it. At this point in time, the Padlet is already live. That address up there, that hyperlink, if I gave it to you, you would already be able to start posting to the Padlet. and I'll certainly do that in a second. But effectively, we need to put in some details. So calling it whatever you like. And then underneath you get a line of text that they're calling the description, basically, subheading, if you like. It's a bit smaller. You can then add in an icon to the left of that if you want to. There is a fairly large library in there. Put in whatever you like. I will put in this amazing jigsaw piece right there. It sticks there to the left of the title, or you can choose no icon at all. And then we get the option of customizing the wallpaper that sits behind it. If you're not into this whole blue denim thing going on there, you can either add in solid colors, textures, etc., or upload your own picture if you've got images that you'd like to use. Keep in mind, you're going to need something that's a decent size or resolution. Otherwise, it's going to look pretty grainy. In this case, I might change to one of these other amazing formats. Let's go with Ocean. And then we continue to modify the wall. There's only a few different font formats. Attribution refers to the person making the post if it's picking up their name and identity when they make it. This is kind of a useless feature in the CSU account, because usually the only person who has a Padlet account is the academic. So the students posting in here are usually guests. They haven't signed up for Padlet accounts. So the attribution function is a bit useless. So you can turn it on, but it's really only going to show your name, and every time a student posts, it'll show, anonymous or guest or something. By default, new posts are at the top and top left if you're using this wall format. Do you want people to be able to comment on your wall? Depends on your purpose for the wall, but if it's intended to be an interactive wall, then you'll need to turn those on. How do you want people to be able to respond to the Padlet? You'll need to configure reactions. Usually the one that gets used at CSU the most is the like option for reactions, and that's probably along that whole adage of if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Otherwise, the others imply, I suppose, an opinion about the quality of the post in some way. If you wanted to upvote it or downvote someone's post, or you wanted to give it a certain number of stars, etc., there's potentially some risk in there if you're asking people to start choosing some of the posts over others, but maybe that will suit your purpose. I'm going to just turn likes on for the moment. Do you want posts to require your approval before they go up on the board? That sounds like a bit too much work for me, but if you wanted to moderate posts in that respect, you certainly could turn on approvals. And do you want to filter profanity? And I think it does it in about 40 different languages. If you're worried about what people are putting into their posts, you can turn on the profanity filter. But look, by and large, that's about all we need for this wall to begin with. So I might hit next. And then I'm ready to go with posts. I can hit start posting. In fact, what I might do is take that hyperlink already, drop it in the chat, and you're able to jump into that Padlet wall if you like. There's no kind of rules in and around how we engage with this today, but if you want to hit the plus sign and start adding things to it in the background whilst I'm talking through this, by all means, feel free.
Lachlan, would this be the easiest way to use this in an online tutorial or something, is give them the link there and tell them to go on there?
100%.
Yeah, okay.
100%. I think what I like about it in that sense, like a lot of the tools, you give them the link, you share your screen and show the output at the same time. So as people are adding things, and I can see up the top here already, there are some icons showing me that people are already in the space. It'll update on the spot, and it makes that experience, fairly dynamic, I suppose, as people are adding things in. Now, I want to have a look firstly at the type of content that we can add in Padlet posts, and you're probably seeing this when you're clicking on the plus sign. You get the ability to put in a subject or a heading into the post, and then underneath you can write some text or body text if you want to call it that. You can configure the color of your posts underneath. This is all fairly superficial stuff, but it all adds to the experience. Maybe you want people to choose a particular color for their posts for a particular reason. But really what I want to get into in terms of the modality of what we do with this tool is this section in the middle. If we click on that, we have a whole bunch of options that we can add to Padlet posts. So some of them include adding files. If you wanted to add a file to a post, for example, you click on upload, pick a file, and it'll add that to the post. See here while it updates, it generates a thumbnail based on that. So that was a PDF file. If I hit publish here, it's added it. I can do others. In this case, if I wanted a hyperlink, let's say to something trashy like the Herald, I can add that in. It will generate the thumbnail to the web page. And again, we've now got something that you can click on, which will open a third-party website. What other types of content can we add in here? Just got someone else in the waiting room. In you come. What else can we do in here? Well, we could use the drawing tool. I think you know what that basically will do. People can scribble, etc. You could search for images or upload images so that they sit in here. You can link directly to YouTube, which does the same thing. It'll open YouTube in another screen through a thumbnail. What I want to look at specifically are some of these content generation type tools. Video recorder will mean, and if I turn my webcam off in Zoom for a second so I can use this, if I click on video recorder, it's going to look for my webcam. There I am, picking up a microphone, and I can start recording. And at this point, we're doing a screencast, webcast. Well, it's a webcast because it's capturing my webcam. You'll see that it's done the video over there. I can hit pause. And I can either choose to get rid of it, make another one, or I can play back and save. Am I happy with this? Do I want to give it a title? Sure, and save. And what this is going to do once it publishes this file, it's just uploading it now on the spot, is we've now got another tool alongside things like Panopto or say Zoom or other things for generating video content nice and quick. If I turn on my video again so you can see me. Right. So we've added video content. What else can we do? If I wanted to just make an audio file, like a podcast effectively, into here, it'll pick up my microphone. You can see that going up and down. Which microphone do I want it to use, etc. If you've got multiple, you can then choose from where it's picking that up. Take that from there, hit record, and off we're going. So you've got another way of creating content that's going to sit inside your Padlet stream. Again, I hit pause. Do I want to get rid of it? Do I want to keep it? And save. If I play this back, hit record, and off we're going. So you've got another way of creating. You don't need to hear that multiple times, but yep, it's adding that to my posts. So you can see very, very quickly, Padlet allows us to add lots of different content types into the space, you or your students, really, really quick, one click, and then it's getting it added into the same space.
So Lachlan,
yep,
sorry,
go ahead.
I'm just looking because I use Padlets at the moment in my I2 site, but it's more like, you know, add your answer in there, I guess. But I could do, say if they've just watched a video recording, I could actually hyperlink the video recording in here and then have, instead of having it as one, say have it like you've got the Sydney Morning Herald, have that and then say, you know, post as well after you've watched that.
Absolutely.
Feedback, or is it better to keep them separate?
No, look, you can do that. It's my only kind of caveat around that response is where's the video? See, if the video's been is in Zoom, for example, sometimes as long as your Zoom recording is shared so that anyone with the link can watch it, then that will work.
Yeah, it's usually a YouTube, like I'll get them to watch that and then they say do a Padlet after it, but I have it as two separate.
Yeah, 100%. You can have them in there and
so
ask
I could
them
have
to
it in
comment.
there and yep, ask them to comment. Cool.
Certainly. All right, so we have looked at a number of different content types. There are still more, and they do make an attempt to keep adding more in there. The other one I want to point out is the screen recorder. Making screencasts is a really incredibly powerful tool for teachers because it gives you a tool to be able to explain processes or steps or workflows or assignment breakdowns or anything you like, really. It's just going to capture what's on your screen. We can do it in Zoom, sure. We can do it in Panopto. We can also do it in Padlet. And the moment we turn it on in here, or it wants an extension for Chrome added to this. I'm not going to go through that now, but that process only takes about 10 seconds. And then you'll be able to make screencasts in here and add those in, which is just another type of video. And it'll play that back embedded within the page. So it is pretty handy in that sense, particularly if you want people to follow a number of different steps. It'll put them all into the same wall. So in one sense, Padlet is about real estate optimization because you can put lots of different steps or instructions or responses all into the one space, rather than if we were just adding them in I2, for example, as one item, another item, another item, another item. You've got a whole lot of scrolling in different areas. We can consolidate that all in a fairly visual way. What I'd like to dig into a little bit here is the functionality with the different formats. We chose a wall, if you remember, as our format when we created this wall. I want to look at some of the others. You can change your Padlet formats at any time by getting down here into the options, the three dots, and then we've got change format. It's also the place you would come to clear the posts if you were going to reuse a Padlet in a subsequent session. So we've got that kind of value add prospect as well with this tool. You don't just need to use it once. You can keep reusing it if you want to. You can also export and keep all the posts that you've got on here if you need a backup for that for some reason. But let's have a look at changing the format. If I was to switch this to, let's have a look at the stream first. It takes all of those posts that we've been adding in there and it puts them one on top of the other. The stream format I really like because it doesn't matter how small the Padlet screen gets, like when we start putting it into I2 sites, the stream will always be this wide. So you get the most out of the space, so to speak. And I'll give you an example of that. I know Kim's in the room. So Kim, we're looking at your page right now. If we look at her landing page, for example, in this case, she's got a Padlet stream there on the landing page. And that means that students coming into this space, sorry, let me turn off edit mode. They get updates on the landing page added to the Padlet stream, one after the other. See what I mean about real estate, how much space is being used? If I was using a different type of Padlet format, like a wall or a shelf, one of the others, I wouldn't get all this space filled. And it'd start to look a little bit crowded and maybe not that good, or requiring people to scroll across or something. So if you're going to embed a Padlet stream inside a part of another page, use the stream format. You get the most bang for your buck in terms of space.
So if this is already embedded in there, just say, and then Kim goes in and writes her week 4 on the actual Padlet in the...
Yep, she hits plus right here.
Oh, you can do it just there.
Absolutely right. Inline. I'm not going to do that, but you can do it there, or you could also open the Padlet wall using that icon in the top right hand corner and update the whole wall. Yep. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, right. So I can do it in my I2 site, week 4, instead of, great.
100%. Make sure you've signed into Padlet in the same browser that you're using at least once. And that way Chrome, for example, will remember that you are Kim Bailey or whoever it is that's writing in the wall. Otherwise, sometimes you'll get that issue of you can't see the plus sign because it doesn't recognize you as the person who owns the wall. So log into charlessturt.uni1.padlet.org at least one time in Chrome so that it passes that information across to where it's embedded. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Let's have a look at some of these other formats. That was the stream. If I change it to another, this time around, I want to show you the canvas. This is a really underused format, I have to say, because it requires a little bit of thinking about what we're going to do with these posts. It allows you to drag them anywhere on the canvas, which is fine. maybe not that amazing from the outset, but it also allows us, looking at the options, to connect our posts and show relational arrows. So we're getting into mud map or brainstorm territory. So I can say, connect to that. There's an arrow. Now this one, connect to this thing down here. You can do that. And again, connect to this thing over here. You can also give those connections a label. And at that point, you're seeing that we can create flowcharts effectively, mud maps, brainstorms, whatever you want to call them. You can have that happening within your Padlet posts, which is nice, particularly if you're wanting students to follow it as part of an activity. Do this bit, watch this thing, click over here, go over here, etc. You can put in those arrows without necessarily having to use some other third-party drawing tool, canvassing tool. Padlet will allow you to do it inline using the Canvas tool, the Canvas format. The other thing we can do with our posts, while I remember, is that you can also link to another Padlet. So if you've created multiple Padlets for part of the same activity, maybe the first part is part of the brainstorming and the second Padlet might be part of making a decision or adding other content. Maybe the first one is read only and the second one is where the students have made a decision and then start to add their own content. You can link to another Padlet. It'll bring up your library and say, right, actually, I want to connect to this one. And at that point, when we publish it, any of the users in this wall who come over to this part and then click on that, it will then launch the other Padlet. So you're creating a pathway at that point in the activity from one to the other. Yes, you could just put in a hyperlink. For whoever was thinking that, you could certainly link off to another wall just by giving a hyperlink, but embedding it within part of an existing Padlet gives you the option to kind of mix things up a little bit. So that's kind of neat. What else can I show you with Padlet?
Can I share this Padlet, say with another CSU staff member via email?
Absolutely. So let's look at sharing. First thing I want to show you before I show you sharing is one other feature. There's a play icon over on the right-hand side here that's talking about a slideshow feature. It says open slideshow if I hover over it. If you do that, it will take each of your individual posts and instantly turn them into a presentation. You might need to rejig the order of your posts a little bit if it's not working for you, but now my 8 posts have become 8 slides effectively. And I think you can use your arrow or left click, but at this point, you can move through and you'll see that the interactivity, in this case, the link still stays there, or you can play each of those, but it has turned the posts into a presentation. So if you're desperate to get out of PowerPoint and you want something with the modality that Padlet has in it, multimodality, etc., you can just simply click on the slideshow feature. It opens in a new tab. So if you're figuring out how you get out of this thing, you can either close the tab or restart it. No, let's just close the tab. All right, so that's the slideshow feature on the right. Might seem like a little thing, but I find that quite handy sometimes if firstly I'm just collecting my ideas and my thoughts, and I don't want to have to go to the effort of making yet another PowerPoint deck. Sometimes Padlet's a nice alternative, organizing your stuff the way that you want it, and then using the slideshow tool. So that's a relatively new addition. All right, before I start getting into share settings, I'm going to stop there, and I'd love to hear from folks here. What do you think about what we've looked at so far? Can you see any potential for any of it? Have you got any questions about what I've showed you so far?
As I said, I've only just started using it in my I2 sites, but I'm loving it so far because I always used to be like post on the discussion board, and the amount of students that have actually used this over posting on a discussion board, I think it's tripled in my class. And I'm just looking at it now thinking, using it over PowerPoint, it looks much nicer and it's all in there ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we get into the sharing as well, we'll look at the embedding part, which just enhances that, as well. It means that you're not looking for a file somewhere that you can kind of load up or whatever. It can actually sit wherever you need it to be, and is dynamic in that you can update it continually if you need to, or involve others in updating it. So it really is the embodiment of that collaborative workspace concept if you need it to be. But similarly, you can also make it monodirectional, whereas if you just need students to be able to see content. So just bringing back that example of the content stream on Kim's homepage, students can't add to this. This is for her to update for them. But similarly, if we look across under the getting started area, she has a Padlet wall embedded in here, which is for students to introduce themselves. And this is a very common use for this tool here. A lot of people will use a Padlet wall for people to add. Usually there's a little bit of scaffolding in and around what you want them to put in there and what you don't want them to put in there. Sometimes there are a few concerns around students sharing images of themselves, for example, in a Padlet wall. But if you want them to specifically cover some things, make sure you put it in the instruction. So this is just text above where the wall has been embedded. We will embed these in a second, have a look at that. But this is very, very common. Using Padlet walls, giving students a chance to engage with each other up front before the subject starts. Basically, it can go live as soon as the subject's live. So 2 weeks before session, and it gives them a way to engage. And as you can see, that's had 53 posts so far in the first couple of weeks of session, which is pretty nice. About half the cohort. Kim, what do you think? She might be busy. That's okay. We can come back to that. All right. Let's have a look at another format of the Padlet wall, and then we'll get into sharing. In this case, this particular format is called the timeline. So when we looked at our content here before, if we were to go into change format, you've got timeline, and what that allows us to do, it lays out a continuum. You can drag and drop these if you want them to appear in other places, but you can then arrange your posts following a timeline. You can add labels to those points as well if you need to, but it lays it all out left to right, essentially, if that's got value to you. In the subject site that I was just showing you, what they've used it to do is, this is a capstone subject, so it has many different teachers teaching into it over different points, and they wanted to introduce parts of what they were doing. And so they've made YouTube videos effectively and embedded those within their Padlet posts. And the only thing that the students were able to do at that point is like. There are our likes underneath. We look at our reactions, but it provides a way to have that content available up front to the students and introduce different people. So purely video and text at that point. Another option utilized in this subject is, instead of an introductory wall for people to just put a text post, they've used the map format. Now the map format embedded, it's a little crowded for us. Maybe we want to expand it full screen. What the map format allows us to do is have a satellite image, for example, sitting as our background or our canvas. People go to add a post and they have to identify where they are as part of this. There's probably some instructions over here. Click on the plus to show us where you are and the area of study you want to get into via your pathway. I don't know how many of the people actually put in that part. We'll have a look at some of them. But if I put in Bathurst, New South Wales, that's enough for the satellite. And what area do I want to get into? Let's say education. Well, that's not untrue. If I publish this, we get my post that's been added, and then I can have a look around at some of the others. And this is Ruby from Wagga, and Ruby says, I want to get into nursing, right? So we get pins being added to the globe, and this will recenter itself based on all of the pins added. So if someone was to add themselves from Antarctica, then this map would zoom out and show us, in fact, more of the globe, so that we were seeing pins from other parts of the world, etc. So it recenters based on the pins added. And again, this is quite common for an introductory type activity. Okay, let's get into the share settings. If we go back to our original Padlet, a few things to be conscious of. The share option is up here on the top right-hand side. This is open to, let's say, the administrator or owner or creator of the Padlet. If you want other people to have those sorts of functions, you would click on Add Members. We're presuming at this point that those other people that you need to have that function have also got a Padlet account. And you can look for them either by their email address or username. I'm not getting much here under Kay Bailey, but if I was to type in Kim, because I know she's got an account, shows me all the Kims, and there she is down the bottom there. And at that point, I have to decide, what do I want her to be able to do with this wall? Administrate, edit, write, or just read. If you're going through these steps of adding another user to the wall, wanting them to look after it, you probably want them to be able to administer it as well. Just a guess. We can save that. If we go back, directly underneath that, we have the privacy settings for the Padlet wall. This is important because it's talking about everybody else. What do we want everyone to be able to do? By default, Padlet walls at CSU are secret, which means the same as an unlisted type video on YouTube. As long as you have the link, you can access it and do things with it, depending on what this setting is underneath. So by default, people can access the wall if they have the link. They can also post, click on the plus and add to the wall, but that's the only way they're going to be able to find it. They can't do a Google search and find the Padlet wall. If we were to change the privacy settings underneath, click on that. We can change it from secret to, what else have we got? You can lock it with a password so that only people with the right password could open it. The organization-wide setting never works. Don't ever click on that. It just doesn't have a way to verify against our account holders for some reason. It's not amazing. So don't use that one. Or private altogether, so only you will be able to access it unless you add that person as another administrator, etc. So by default, we have secret, and people visiting can write. If you want them just to be able to read it, then you'll need to change that to can read, can write. Don't worry about edit. So that's our share settings. What do we do with our Padlets after the fact? If we scroll down a little, we can get a link to it, or you could click up here and get the link. We can get a QR code if you wanted to embed a link to a Padlet wall so that students might scan it with their mobile devices and open it up as part of an activity in person in different learning spaces. We'll get to embedding in just a second, but that's where we're going to get the code for doing that. Or potentially, quite common, people want to be able to export Padlet walls, either as a PDF or an image, to send those results or show them somewhere else. If you didn't want it to be live anymore, you might want to capture the output from a Padlet wall, and you can do that either as a PDF or an image. These options are down here for Excel and CSV are a bit more fiddly, but that's basically organizing the posts into and the contributions in the posts into Excel columns. So you're going to get the text into a column. It's not amazing unless you're really quite experienced with using this. I'd avoid probably using those, to be honest. Or you can just straight out print them. Sorry, Tamika.
Sorry, Lachlan. And if I emailed this to somebody who didn't have Padlet, they'd still be able to open it up and watch a recording, look at what I've written on there. Yep.
Absolutely. Depending on your privacy settings, but by default, yes.
Yep.
As long as you sent them the link.
Yep.
All right, let's have a look at embedding. In the share settings down here, we've got embed in your blog and website. The first option here has a bunch of code. You don't need to know about coding for this stuff. All you need to know is where to find it. Hit the copy, which is going to grab all of this and put it in our clipboard. Copy that. Go back to your I2 site. I'm assuming you want to embed it in your I2 site. If we were to find some place that Kim won't mind if I add something for a minute, I promise I'll delete it later. Make sure your edit mode is on. We're going to build content, add in a new item. Now in here, what I would suggest is if you're going to put any instructions for the students about using the wall, put it in here. First, maybe put in a line or two. But now because we're dealing with code and embed code, we have to turn on the code view, which is over here, these two arrows. Click on that. And you'll see the cursor is flashing where I left it. So I'm actually ready for my Padlet stuff to go down here underneath the instructions. I can hit Control V to paste that code, save, and my Padlet wall has gone directly underneath my instruction. It is super easy to get these walls embedded in your subject sites and get them usable by students. That's ready to go. If I hit submit, turn off my edit mode, because it's the last item that I added, it'll be right down the bottom. But there we go. There's a Padlet wall ready for students to use straight away. We've got some text instructions up the top. I could go back in and edit those and change them if I want, but this wall is live and ready to be used. So taking it from creating the wall fairly quickly and then embedding it directly into your subject site is really, really quick. And you'll find that, that the biggest challenge really with it is figuring out how you want to use it. That's it. Creating these things, adding posts to it, getting students in there is really, really simple, quick and easy. All right, I would love to spend some time in Zoom Whiteboards now, but if anyone has any questions in around Padlet, now is the time. Anyone at all?
I have one question. When I put some discussion, for example, and I'm waiting for the students to participate, would I get any notification that someone posted something or there's something has been added on that Padlet?
It's a good question, Dana. You can turn on notifications when you create the Padlet wall. I guess be really sure that you want to do that, because if you have a lot of students posting, they're all going to come through as emails. And sometimes, you know, in your window notification settings, they're going to pop up a lot down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's usually, notifications is usually connected to your browser settings as well, whether or not Google's going to show you notifications going through. So yes, the answer is you can turn those on, and I can talk to you about that offline if you like, about how to do that. But I will make one other comment in this space, and that is that, just turn my speakers down a little bit. You can't use Padlet really for assessment at CSU in terms of the final formal submitted assessment task. I'll clarify that. Because this is a public web page, it's unlisted, but it's still public on the web, and students can obviously see each other's contributions in here. We can't have assessment content, the final submitted assessment content, going into Padlet walls at that point. So it's problematic in that sense. A lot of people use it as part of the formative process or the steps towards submitting the final formal submission. As part of, you know, let's say that an assessment task might have 3 steps, and part of it, of that process is posting into Padlet to begin with, to you know, kind of crystallize, you know, your final contribution, etc. You can do that, but the final formal submission would need to go into one of our assignment submission tools like Turnitin, Ease, somewhere else. Is that making sense? Okay. Right, let's get into Zoom Whiteboards. If I might close a few of these tabs up the top. Zoom Whiteboards, if I just find the posts that I had on this, right, it's a fairly new feature. It had the whiteboard functionality in our Zoom meetings for quite a while, but its application was fairly limited. We couldn't do that much with it. They've made a lot of improvements to this over the past 6 months. And it now is at the point where I would definitely recommend using this to you and to play around with it. 2 things to be conscious of. One of them is that you can access your whiteboards in Zoom from the Zoom portal, the back end. So if we were to go to charlessturt.zoom.us, our Zoom portal, and sign in, you're going to see a whiteboards option over on the left-hand side in your nav. And this will show you all the whiteboards you've created before and give you the option to create new ones. You're also able to choose from a variety of templates, etc. But this does not launch the whiteboard. It simply creates it in the background, ready for you to use in a live meeting. So if I was to create a new whiteboard here, click on new. It's just loading on us. I'm just going to create a blank one so I can actually close these prompts. Here's a blank whiteboard ready to be used. It's sitting in my Zoom settings in my portal. Maybe I want to give it a title. So let's call it title goes here. And now the whiteboard name's ready for me to pull up later on. We have a toolbar over here on the left-hand side what they're going to do with the whiteboard, but I want to bring it into our live Zoom session. So let's have a look at what that looks like. If I bring my Zoom screen across, let's find that, shall I? All right, so here's my Zoom room. I can see you all in here. If I was to go across and find the whiteboards option, click on that. It's connecting to my back end of Zoom here and looking for any that I've created. There's the title. So I've given it a title, fairly indicative. Click on that. How do I want to use it? Do I just want to present and people are not able to do much with it? Or do I want to collaborate? Do I want them to be able to access the whiteboard later? So the whiteboard is not just active during the meeting. It can also be accessed and contribute to later. Let's open the board. So this is now in the space for all of you. I can stop sharing. Well, you should be able to see that board now in my shared space. And what that will allow you to do is choose from the variety of tools that we have over on the left-hand side to either write on the board using the pen pencil option, or you can choose some of the shapes, etc. These are generic features of whiteboards, and arguably the most popular one in the whiteboard tool is the sticky note option. And that is about halfway down. Yep.
Can't see the menu.
Okay, so Liz, this is probably a really good point. The ability to access the whiteboards in Zoom and contribute to them is based on whether or not you've updated Zoom maybe in the last 6 months or so to a new version. We might have to update that and I'll show you where to do that. So you're going to need to update your Zoom desktop application. If you open this box, click on your profile image, top right-hand corner, and go about 2/3 of the way down, check for updates, and update Zoom. So the whiteboards, well, yeah, that's it. So I think she's gone to do that. Can everybody else see the whiteboard? Yep, thanks, Tamika. All right, so I'm going to go back.
So then is this a problem? Because that happened to me last week and I've updated it. So got it all sorted. But will this be a problem if I use the whiteboard in my tutorial this afternoon and students haven't got an updated Zoom?
It's a problem in that they're going to need to have updated to be able to use it. And they're going to need to have updated at some point in the last 6 months. Yeah, that's where that's coming from. And it's so yes, they need to know. And do I need to reshare the whiteboard? I'm not sure if sharing my screen has stopped people being able to get in there.
I can't see the whiteboard now.
All right, let me launch it again. So sharing my screen, obviously detracts from people being able to see it inside the Zoom meeting. Sorry about that. All right, so the function that I really want to point out here is using the sticky note function, which is about halfway down. I can see Kim's grabbed one. If you want to click on the sticky note option in your nav tool and add in a post to the wall, you can do that. Change the color of the sticky notes if you need to. The more you type in, the smaller the text gets. And there's Liz. All right, welcome back, Liz. We're in the whiteboard tool at the moment, and you should hopefully be able to see the sticky note function. I can see Kim and others going nuts in that space, which is great.
I can see that, but it's still not letting me do the upgrade, but I can do that later.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. So yeah, that is going to crop up for your students, definitely. If they can't see the ability to be able to post themselves, it's about updating Zoom, and they'll just need to rejoin the meeting as soon as it's updated. All right. So we're posting on a blank canvas. That's all well and good. What else can we do with our whiteboards at this point in time? Down the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see an option. Now, I might need to share my screen so you can see what I see as the controller of the board. So I'm going to do that. Share, share, share. Where is that going? Share screen. That's better. Sharing your screen will close the whiteboard for everybody. Do I want to continue? Yeah, I better. Okay. What I want to point out here is that when you're the host, you've got control over your whiteboards. Down the bottom right-hand corner, you've got options to be able to zoom in and out, but it also has an option here about adding new pages. If I add in a second page, I can click in Add Page. It can be blank.
We can't see your screen, Lachlan.
Can't see my screen?
Sorry.
It's not liking me today. How about now?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, beauty. Right, so the option I was pointing out is down here, bottom right-hand corner. You're looking for the page option. You can add in more pages or more whiteboards if you're wanting people as part of the activity to move from one to the other. You can add in subsequent pages. You can also, over on the left-hand side, choose from templates if you want those templates to be used in the activity. So some of those have things like, I guess, colored areas for you to organize your post-it notes, for example. If you wanted to use those, you don't have to come up with everything from scratch yourself. So you can then use these and then start configuring those, the text, the colors, whether you want them to use existing post-it notes or add more. So play around with the templates if you want to. But what I want to look at here is an activity, I guess, that has a little bit of direction and instruction. So in this case, what I'm going to do is from my room, I'm going to share a new whiteboard with you. And this time around, clicking on whiteboards, I have got a simple whiteboard activity that is asking you as participants to add sticky notes using the sticky note option on the left to identify some of your winter coping strategies. I've got a bit of text. I've got 2 lines here just separating people's ideas, etc. A bit of structure. And then you can start adding in posts either side. And you can see people are doing that very quickly and easily. So this is the way that the whiteboard tool can start to have just a little bit of direction to start organizing content. And people can add that in. So then I might turn around and start saying, right, well, let's say if it's related to food, let's keep the post-it notes yellow. If we're talking about some form of exercise, we could make the posts green. If we were talking about some other type of activity, pink. So you can use the functionality of the tool set, for example, to give a little bit of direction. And then as you're going through that, that might then allow you to start then dragging and dropping and organizing people's posts into some other form. It depends on the activity. There's a million ways that we can use this. Kim, I know you're a fairly prolific user of a whiteboard type tool with Jamboard. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I like the range of opportunities to organize the text. I think that could be really helpful. It seems to have a little bit more functionality than Jamboard, but the only issue I can see is students that haven't updated their Zoom accounts.
That's the one. That's the one. I'm going to talk to DIT as well, because there's meant to be an account level function that forces people to update Zoom at least to the last 2 versions when they log in. And I'm not seeing evidence of it at the moment. Lots of people have older versions of it because they haven't been prompted to update. So yeah, no, it's a really good point. All right, what I want to have a look at here is what we can do with our whiteboards as well as we wrap things up for today. There is a share option. So we're still live, we're inside the Zoom session, but if I click on the share button in here, we get some options in here about what we do with the boards. It's very important that this button, external users, can be invited. This is another way of saying, and this option underneath, anyone with the link can view this board. Make sure you check those to make sure that they're on, because you're going to get students who join your Zoom meetings that aren't logged into any CSU systems, for example. They're joining via a link in an announcement or somewhere else to join the Zoom meeting, so they're not going to be verified against Zoom, so to speak. So it's important that these external options are ticked on. We also want to make sure that the one down the bottom, anyone with a link can view the board. This is usually the main hurdle that people say, why can't people click and update the whiteboard? Not just in the live meeting, but it also comes down to, what about the whiteboard after the fact? All right, so let's say that I've finished my Zoom meeting and I'm going to actually go back to looking at my Zoom window. If I look in my background of Zoom, gone into my Zoom CSU portal and clicked on whiteboards, we were playing around with.
We can't see your screen, Lachlan.
Why is share just not working for me today? I'm glad you're telling me, Kim. Thank you. So I've jumped into the Zoom portal. Can you see that now?
Yep.
Okay, great. We were looking at this board. It's going to be updated. There are the posts that people added during the session. If I wanted to click on this 3 dots option over on the right-hand side, I can get version history as well, which means I can, if people have updated this progressively over time, I can also roll back to earlier versions, which is a nice feature. If you're familiar with Google Docs or version history in any other tool, it'll allow you to roll that back to an earlier version. Things like dots, no dots, or a line grid, that's up to you. You can turn those off. I can export the whiteboard if I wanted to get a PDF or an image of the whiteboard, which is nice to share that later after the fact. I can also get rid of it if I want to. I can lock it so that people can't update it. But what I'm looking for here is a link to give to people afterwards who weren't in the Zoom meeting. Clicking on share, I can grab that by clicking on copy link. That'll give me a hyperlink to open this whiteboard later on. If I was sticking that in a subject site somewhere, I could say, if you weren't in the meeting, you can still go and add your contribution to the whiteboard. And that will all come back to whether or not your share settings have been set up properly. Or if I go back to my whiteboards base page, there's also a share option over here on the right. So that, as with a lot of things in Zoom, there are a few ways to skin the cat. You can get that link and that share option in a few different spots. The other options that you have clicking on the dots from this base menu is either trashing it or duplicating it if you wanted the wall to be used again and you wanted to keep the original posts. So that is our Zoom whiteboards option in a nutshell. Play around with it, have a go. It seems to be, pretty functional to me. What do people think about that? Kim, you think that it's got some application compared to Jamboard, maybe?
Yeah, I like the templates. That Jamboard doesn't give you those options.
Yeah, absolutely. There's heaps in there as well. If you click on all templates, there are hundreds, and maybe you'll be able to find some in there that suit the type of activity that you might have in mind. Play around with it. That's all I can say. Yeah. Anybody else? If not, I will stop the recording. Wish you all a happy teaching week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, Lachlan.
Thanks, Lachlan.